Ultimate Spider-Man is my favorite Spider-Man, not to be confused with Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, or the other 1610 versions of him, though I love them all. I'm talking about Peter Parker of Earth 1610, the original one to use the adjective by Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley. If you don't know what Ultimate Spider-Man is or need a refresher, let me break it down. It all started on December 28th, 1922, when a boy named Stanley Martin Lieber was born. Okay, maybe the VOSA doesn't need to be that long. We'll start in 2000. Marvel Comics president Bill Jemas and editor-in-chief Joe Quesada wanted to reboot the Marvel Universe to introduce it to new readers without them having to know decades of Marvel history. So what do? Make the Ultimate Marvel imprint, starting with Ultimate Spider-Man. Joe Quesada recommended having Brian Michael Bendis, a crime and noir comic writer, do it, and the rest is history. The comic sold and we stuck with Ultimate Peter for 160 issues till his death. Then Miles Morales took over. Then Peter came back, then the universe collapsed. This series influenced everything. The movies, cartoons, it even got its own games, which are peak and deserve separate videos in their own right. I've loved this version of Peter my whole life, and he's even more relatable to me now that I'm a high schooler myself. I even own an Einstein poster because of this comic. My first experience with Ultimate Spider-Man was watching this Death of Spider-Man fan comic dub as a kid. It was either that or this music video tribute that screams early 2010s. I remember watching these and running around my room punching the air pretending to be Spider-Man. We all did that, right? But now that we're done with introductions, the Ultimate Spider-Man timeline makes no sense. And by no sense, I mean it makes total sense unless you're a lunatic that loves to cherry pick things. But I wanted the title to be dramatic enough for you to click, but not quite clickbait. I want you guys to know that I'll be nitpicking everything, and this doesn't affect my enjoyment of the comic whatsoever. I just wanted to document all the timeline hiccups I found because it's inevitable in this line of work. I think this is where Peter being eternally in high school came from because he originally graduated in the first 28 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, but in Ultimate Spider-Man he doesn't turn 16 until issue 155. That's 11 years of publication time. Before 2000 he was almost always in college or an adult besides flashbacks, of course. Now it's not impossible that Ultimate Spider-Man's career could have happened in a year, but in issue 72 it said that Peter was bitten 9 months ago. So that means issues 72 to 160 take place in 3 months, right? Wrong! There's a 6-month ultimatum timescale. And we know that Peter being bit 9 months ago isn't a one-time thing either. In issue 59 there's a 4-month time skip, and in issue 61 there's a 2-month time skip. So that's already 6 months in time skips by issue 62. He also mentions in the Ultimate Spider-Man Super Special from 2002 that he's 16 to Daredevil when he asks him what his age is. But I'd like to imagine this is just him lying to Daredevil to seem more mature because we've all lied about our age on the internet as kids. Bendis also just gives up giving numbers for when events happen, so some events happened unspecified months ago. Like when Spider-Man meets Blade for the first time in issue 95. In this case it's easier to deduce when this happened because it's a retelling of when they met in the Super Special that came out in July 2002, which coincides with Ultimate Spider-Man issue 24. But publication dates are hardly accurate to when these events actually take place in universe because if they were, Peter would have aged 11 years by issue 160. But I guess we should talk about Ultimate Marvel Team Up, because Super Special is the conclusion to all that. If you don't know, Ultimate Marvel Team Up is inspired by Marvel Team Up. It was made when Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate X-Men were just starting out and before Ultimate Fantastic Four and Ultimates existed, and was a way for them to flesh out the Ultimate Universe more. The only problem is that when Spider-Man meets characters that haven't been introduced in the Ultimate Universe yet, but will later be reintroduced, like Iron Man or Hulk, they look and act like their 616 counterparts. And you'd think that would just make Ultimate Marvel Team Up not canon to the greater Ultimate Universe, but it is. The only issue that isn't canon is issue 9, because it's a really odd issue with Ultimate Spider-Man TV show level fourth wall breaks. They also mention that he's 16 in the Super Special. There's a lot of differences in this issue from the mainline Ultimate Universe, like Johnny Storm and the rest of the Fantastic Four are veteran heroes instead of newbies. In this issue, Johnny talks to Peter and gives him advice on how to be a hero, as opposed to the actual Ultimate Spider-Man book where Peter teaches Johnny the ropes. It is really cool that a lot of the dialogue from Ultimate Marvel Team Up was reused for the Ultimate Spider-Man game though. The rest of the run connects pretty well with the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. You just have to ignore that Hulk is green or Iron Man has a sleeker suit more akin to his 616 counterpart, and trades it in for a bulky, less advanced armor by the time Ultimates comes around. I'll be lenient on Ultimate Iron Man because he has a huge catalog of suits we never see, including Bender from Futurama. He also owns a suit that looks just like his Earth 616 Model 1 suit, even though he never went into the cave and it was stolen by a vampire leader coincidentally named Anthony because comics. And Iron Man's not even named Anthony in this universe, it's Antonio. In issue 2 of the Ultimates, Nick Fury and Bruce Banner say that he hasn't hulked out in 6 months. I assume this refers to his appearance in Ultimate Marvel Team-Up. But then there's a year-long time skip in the first page of Ultimates 2, and we see Peter alive and well during the events of Ultimates 3. Well, as alive as you can be when being left paralyzed in the snow by Hawkeye and Captain America. Speaking of Ultimates 3, I hate this book, but the art is pretty ultimate. There's a scene where Hawkeye's telling Janet to frick off, and Cap pulls an MCU cap and says, "Watch your language." Spider-Man's appearance is the only good thing about this book, I'll be real. They do adapt Ultron pretending to be Iron Man to capture a fellow hero in Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes though, which is pretty cool. I've heard a lot of people say that the War of the Symbiotes arc's timeline is a bit confusing, which I do get. The arc is supposed to be an adaptation of the Ultimate Spider-Man game symbiote arc, so it made the game not canon anymore, and there's also a lot of time skips spanning from several weeks ago, months ago, the next day, later that night, the next day, back to several weeks ago, hours earlier, 20 minutes prior to hours earlier.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
1 month ago, it's a lot. It's best if you don't pay attention to it and just figure it out yourself. I assume months ago means it takes place whenever the game took place. In issue 157, Peter rushes home to Aunt May and Gwen Stacy to tell them to get out of town because Green Goblin and every other sinister supervillain Peter's taken out over the years has escaped. Worse, they know where he is and who he lives. Did I really just say that? They know who he is and where he lives. Unfortunately, Shocker is not one of them because they only had 6 slots, but I'm sure he would have loved to join. They added that bum Kraven, but couldn't get my boy Shocker. But when Peter's explaining all this to them, Peter says that all the villains he's broken out over the years have gotten out. Years? Peter, you've been Spider-Man for a singular year. This is probably hyperbole, but I felt like I should mention it. The last thing I want to talk about is Ultimate Origins. In Ultimate Origins, we find out that Peter's mom took baby Peter to where Peter's dad, Richard Parker, was working as a biologist in a government lab to recreate the super soldier serum. At the time, Hulk goes on his first rampage and kills Peter's parents. Hulk sees baby Peter in his stroller and reverts back to Banner where he gets rodeo kicked by Nick Fury.
This ain't my first rodeo, kid.
What does that even mean?
Nick Fury takes baby Peter and just leaves, saying this wasn't supposed to happen this way. And honestly, that's how I feel. It couldn't have happened this way. If they died, this makes no sense because Peter's parents died in a plane crash. Does Richard Parker have superhuman durability so they survived this and just was badly injured? Maybe he used Venom on himself because Venom's a gone wrong cure for cancer in this universe? I don't know. It just feels unnecessary to connect this stuff. And you know what, Peter? You can't be sad about your parents dying. I forbid you. Batman's parents died in front of him. Your parents died maybe in front of you? But even then, you were a baby. You don't even have a consistent reason for your parents dying. The Marvel sawing timescale is nothing new, but I just wanted to mention all the weird Ultimate Spider-Man timey-wimey shenanigans that go on. What I'm trying to say is Peter having all this happen in a year kinda doesn't make sense. It also makes Peter look like a slut who sleeps around because he's jumping relationship to relationship to relationship in this series. What do you mean you're dating your sister figure? Figure it out, man. And yes, I know this is nothing compared to the 616 universe. I'm sure I missed some things, so if you have something to say, comment it. And like I said before, I love Ultimate Spider-Man. Thanks to this book having one writer, there's a lot less continuity errors in this compared to most other Marvel books. I just wanted to channel my inner MatPat and overanalyze everything. If you ladies and gents enjoyed the video, smash like, subscribe, all the generic YouTuber phrases, just do it, and thanks for watching.